Welcome to Pink Radio with Prestige. This is the place for you, the diva boss entrepreneur who needs quick tips on building your crave-worthy brand. This is your host, Nicole Doss, CEO of the Prestige Society, a membership organization for women entrepreneurs who believe in building powerful networks while slanging in their industries. So I want you to go ahead and grab your favorite cup of coffee and get your favorite tips right here with Prestige. Hi everyone, I am so excited that you are joining me today, and we are going to keep it very short and brief, but nonetheless this is super duper important. But before we get started, I do want to just give you a quick announcement that we have an awesome sponsor for today's episode, which is James Marie Boutique. She is offering our listeners 15% off of their summer collection, and all you have to use is promo code PINK15. That's promo code PINK, capital P-I-N-K, 15. And in order for you to be able to use this promo code, all you have to do is just go to their site, www.jamesmarieboutique.com, and on top of the 15% with the promo code, you also get free shipping as well. So if you were looking for what they love to call minimal chic, nice little items to wear for the summer, you definitely can take full advantage of that particular promo code. Okay, so back to business. Are you guys ready? So what we're going to talk about now is really the importance of you as the leader, you as the person who is really spearheading your particular areas of your business. Why it's important for you to really start having very clear, crystallized visions when it comes to your organization. And the reason why we're having this conversation is because many times what I end up hearing is that there's all of these really great ideas that are out there, and then all of these great ideas that are then brought to market. And what ends up happening is that when you have these really great ideas that you bring to market, they usually tend to be grounded in the very things that you are very talented in. And sometimes it is very hard for your audience or targeted demographic to be able to decipher really what it is that you're doing and why you're doing it. And what begins to happen is that when that confusion happens, then we find that a confused buyer does not buy. What does that mean? That means that your conversions do not result to dollars. And so I love that, I used to say this with a client of mine that, we always talk about how do we turn likes into dollar signs? Well, that's kind of what you're dealing with, right? So whenever you're in this space where you are not making your vision clear to your targeted audience, you are really failing to be able to successfully convert those who are looking or browsing or perusing your site or your timeline into actual paying clients. So there's three really key reasons why you want to make sure that your vision is absolutely clear. So the first thing you need to understand is that your vision is your blueprint. So what I mean by your vision is your blueprint is that your vision is going to be the original blueprint that is going to give you guidance in what else you're going to do with the business. So for instance, if you know that your business is supposed to be focusing on helping solve a problem around whatever your targeted demographic is experiencing, then that's your vision to help this target demographic with that problem. So that means that every single thing that you do, every product you create, every service that you create, every service that you decide that you're going to be able to push out, every bit of content that you be able to create, all of that must help move the needle forward when it comes to solving the problem for that targeted demographic. So for instance, if I'm going to help solve financial or economic issues for low-income families, I can't create content on basket weaving because there's no connecting of the dots. And if I created a business plan and if I created an organizational plan and all types of goals for the year to really help me in that space, then what ends up happening is that if I create then a course on basket weaving, then there's this huge disconnect between the blueprint that's created versus the actual service or content that I'm creating, right? So then the consumer's like, well, then what am I using you for? Am I using you for basket weaving or am I using you for financial information? So that's why it's really important for us to make sure that when we are making that vision, it's really clear because of the fact that it is the blueprint for your business. It really should be driving everything that you are doing, okay? And we'll get to what else it should be doing as far as that driver. The second thing I want you guys to keep in mind, I'm sorry, I have a little bit of a cold today. Maybe it's not a cold. Maybe it's allergies. I don't know. But I definitely have a nasal voice, so I do apologize ahead of time. So you're going to hear a lot of sipping of green tea, and you're definitely going to hear my nasally voice. But I do apologize, but these are gems, and I want you to get the gems. Okay, so secondly, the thing is that the vision helps connect the dots. So the reason why this is really important to take into consideration around the connecting of the dots is because there's nothing like disconnect when it comes from brand and conversion. So when we talked about me being this company around creating financial plans or financial services for low-income families and then creating a course on basket weaving, that example shows that when the audience is hearing that your brand is one thing, which is that financial services, and then all of a sudden you're moving into a course that has nothing to do with what I'm saying that my business is all about, what ends up happening is that now there's this disconnect. And I want you to think about the timing around it too. So normally what happens is that we introduce the brand to the audience first. So we'll say, oh, this is the brand and this is what we do. So then when you move into the space where you're like, oh, this is the brand, there's all this time that usually goes into introducing the brand to the audience. And then finally, there's this idea you have. And maybe that first idea is in complete alignment with the blueprint. So maybe you are now offering services to help. So first you're saying, I'm here to help. And now you're saying, this is how I can help. Now you should retain my services. So when you're doing that, you're spending all this time really building up your integrity. You're really building this trust so people can trust you as a resource. And then all of a sudden you have this next idea. And when that next idea is basket weaving, literally your entire audience is going to pump their brakes. And they're going to be like, like what? And it's not going to make any sense to them. So the reason why is because you spent so much time trying to connect the dots with your brand. You've been spending so much time saying, I am this resource, that's dot A, and then you've been connecting it to dot B, saying this is what I can do. So I am this resource, dot A, I'm going to connect it to dot B, saying this is what I can do. Then you're going to connect to dot C, saying so this is why you need me. And then all of a sudden, connector D, because we went from A to B to C, and now connector D says, and now I have a course on basket weaving. And literally everyone's going to be like, wait a minute. And they're not going to be able to draw that connecting line to what it is you're putting out there. So I know this is a really extreme example, and it's not exactly what you would see, but this is what happens when we jump from idea to idea to idea to idea. Now, maybe you can tell me that the reason why you're going to create a course on basket weaving is because it can create an additional stream of revenue, and that in creating this additional stream of revenue or a revenue stream, you have the ability to now have more financial vitality. So it would help you financially in increasing your income stream and your revenue stream, and you were able to see that there's this really great booming industry of baskets that are in demand. Supply is low, and this is why you should do that. Well, that's a whole different conversation, but that's context that was built around it. And what we can't do is just throw something out there that is not in alignment with our blueprint, right? Because our vision is our blueprint, and then all of a sudden expect consumers to connect the dots on their own. So when we are talking about our vision, yes, our vision is our blueprint, but number two, the vision also needs to be the connecting dots from the brand to the consumer. And if we find that there's a disconnect, then do understand that your clients, customer base, whomever you want to call them, they're not going to buy. They're not going to move forward. There's going to be an immediate halt because they can't tell what you're doing. They can't tell why. And it's really important for us to have ownness on this and realizing that if something does seem to not be connected, and if only we can see internally what the connection is, we must do our due diligence to be able to own the activity of creating the narrative necessary for them to be able to move forward. So these are the things that are really important when we think about vision. The third reason why we need to think about vision is because it also keeps you anchored. And the reason why this keeps you anchored is because it keeps, to me, it's like, I'll use me as an example. I have all of these great ideas of what it is that I want to be able to do. And each idea is like a balloon. And if I'm told that the sky is the limit, then I see each idea being a balloon taking me higher and higher to this awesome level of, greatness. And what my vision does, it kind of anchors me a little bit. And the reason why I said it anchors me is because it really forces me to say, not to stay on the ground, but it keeps me from going too far off course. It keeps me from going too far up, pie in the sky, where it doesn't make sense any longer. And so what I have to do is just say, okay, look at this anchor and say, okay, Nicole, you want to go in all these different areas, but how does this make sense? It's like that little jolt to say, wait a minute, how do you need to create a narrative that makes enough sense where you're able to say, these are the things that we need to take into consideration to connect or make those connectors work for everyone. So I think that's really important for us to consider and really important for us to be able to take into consideration when we are putting all these things out to market. So I really want you guys to understand this is why we're having this conversation around vision. So first, because your vision is your blueprint. And if you get an idea and you're so excited about this idea, you just run to market with it, it's not going to stick all the time, or it's not going to stick with longevity because there's nothing that's giving you guidance around what you're doing because you're just kind of shooting at the hip. So your vision, a clear vision, will act as a blueprint for your organization. Number two, your vision is going to help you connect the dots. So it's going to connect the dots from brand to customer. Three, your vision is going to keep you anchored, which means that when you have all these awesome, wonderful ideas, it's really going to help you in doing that checks and balance and identifying whether or not this is truly aligned to what it is that you want to be able to focus on for your brand. So we know why we're talking about vision, but why did this come up and why am I in this space where I feel like we really need to look at this a little bit further? So what I've been noticing is that a lot of you guys out there have been having some really, really great ideas. And you've been in a space where you want to try those new ideas and you want to introduce those ideas to market. And I celebrate you for that. I celebrate you for having the courage to put something out there not knowing if it's going to stick. I give you, so many kudos for even having the creativity and the innovation to be able to say, hey, here's something new. Because a lot of people can't think of something outside of the box. But where I caution you is to make sure that it's clear. Because when it's not clear, that's where we begin to really create a barrier between ourselves and our customer. So let's talk about some things that I want you to do in making sure that you are making your vision very clear, okay? So the first thing I want you to do and making your vision clear is I want you to go back to your purpose. So go back to your mission statement, go back to your charter. Maybe there's a charter that you have, maybe there's, a mission and vision statement that you have, but go back to that. And what I want you to do is I want you to do a side-by-side comparison and say, what are some of these things that you are doing currently? So maybe it's new products you're offering. Maybe it's new events that you have. Maybe it's, a new service that you're going to provide. And do a side-by-side comparison and look at those new things that you're kind of pushing out to market, and look at your purpose statement, look at your mission and vision statement, and really see like where are the areas of synergy. And if you find that there's alignment, then that means you're on the right track. But if you find that there's this real way off thing here where what you're focusing on now is no longer the focus, or what it wasn't what the focus used to be in the past, then really what I want you to do is talk about, first internally with yourself, and then of course this is something externally you can push out to market, but really begin to look at what are some of these things that you need to do to kind of clarify the message, because you realize that there's some misalignment here and you need to create some clarity for your targeted audience. Okay, so that's one. So first thing, side-by-side comparison from what your current state is, meaning what you are offering to your target audience now versus what you were offering in the past. Okay? And once again, if you find there's alignment, you're on the right path. If you find that things are not aligned, then you need to kind of stop and do some reflection. And what that reflection is going to really cause you to do is say, do you continue on the path of yesteryear, or do you continue on the path of now? And continuing the path of yesteryear isn't necessarily wrong. It just means that you kind of just went off the beaten path and it's time for you to course correct. But maybe you're no longer interested in what you originally set out to do, and you find that this natural, organic movement to where you want to go now, it may just be something that you find that you just much rather do. And that's okay too. There's no right or wrong answer in it. Just know that if there's anything that is not clear, anything that's not in alignment, then that's something that's going to cause confusion. And once again, confused buyers do not buy. So that's the first step. First step is, doing that side-by-side comparison. Number two, we need to dust off the messaging here. So what do I mean by that? So dusting off your messaging is going to be making sure your communication is clear and making sure that you are embedding communication through everything. And this is something that's going to be social communication, something that you're socially going to weave into your strategies here, as well as something that you're going to also think about as like very direct messaging. So let me give you examples of what I mean. When you look at things like Google AdSense, for instance, one of the things they do is they use these bots to be able to scrub copy everywhere, whether it's blog posts, social media posts, whether it's like website content. And what they look for is they look for these Google AdSense words to be like just eloquently just placed throughout copy or content throughout many different platforms, to be able to say, okay, this is what adds to you getting visibility on Google. So usually, like I used to use Google AdSense, and the word mompreneur had like so many views. So I would use the word mompreneur very like just casually throughout a lot of different content. You might see it in a hashtag for social media. You might see it in a blog post. You might see it in some of my copy on my website. But those are the things they look for. What they don't want is just this really blatant dump. They want it to be something naturally part of your verbiage. It's the same way you think of how you use your communication messaging for when you're making your vision absolutely clear. So when you're using your messaging and you're trying to make it very clear about what your vision truly is, then what you have to do is you have to make it part of every type of platform and every type of conversation that you have, but it's not going to be something that's so overt that it's like you're constantly like pushing it. It's going to be something that's going to be just effortless. So what do I mean by that? Maybe it's, so let me give you a perfect example using our awesome sponsor, James Murray Boutique. So James Murray decided that they wanted to move into this this, it was called minimally chic type of wardrobe. And in doing that, there was this desire to really move from one profile of a client to a completely different profile of a client. And in doing that, I thought of all these different ways of how she could really begin to just weave into the conversation of where the brand was going. So for instance, maybe write a blog on what does it mean to be minimally chic, and really start educating the audience around that particular vision. It was a vision of where the company was going. So start educating them on that. Maybe doing a live of how to put pieces together that fall under that category of minimally chic. Then once you move into that space of doing lives and showing people how do you put those pieces together, maybe start talking about why you moved into that space of being minimally chic. So now it starts piquing people's interest to a term that maybe they weren't knowledgeable of before. So these are things that could really help you in that space of saying, wow, like I didn't think of that. Now these are things that you really start taking into consideration. So these are just really basic examples of how you begin to think about your messaging and the different platforms you want to use. Maybe it's a post showing what it looks like with people who are, really well known and have notoriety out there. So that way you have what I call champions, because these are people who have done this effectively, who can support what you're doing. So we call them, like in project management, it's known as someone who's a champion of a project. So it's someone who's a champion of what it is that you're trying to put out to market. So these are different things to consider when you are really trying to think about your messaging. So really start thinking about what what the vision is. Once you do that I don't care, when you do your side-by-side comparison, if you find that it's aligned or if it's not aligned, you're still going to have to either dust off the messaging or create and craft a message. And in any way that you do that, you want to do it just like I was telling you, that example with Google AdSense, how it has to be something that's very natural, something that's very organic, something that is going to be effortlessly woven into things that are on multiple platforms. So when you are thinking about that and you're doing that, these are the things that I really want you to take into consideration, okay? All right. Number 3, consistency is queen. I know we say everything is king, but here we're just going to say consistency is queen. So what I mean by that is that you cannot share your vision one time, one post, one platform, one way, and think that that's going to be enough to begin to socialize a message. So whenever you are thinking about communicating the vision, communicating how it is that you are taking this idea or new idea that you're bringing to market, whenever you're thinking about what are those things that you are going to do that's going to help people to really understand where you're trying to go and how you want them to come along with the ride, you really need to be consistent. I used to have a director who used to say, 7 different times, 7 different ways, boss. And I used to be like, well, I don't feel like saying the same thing 7 different times. And so the reality is that now that we have even more in this technical age, distractions, meaning so many different things that are coming in through timelines, so many different emails that are coming into the inbox, so many different things that are distracting us and filling up our brains. Now it takes more than 7 different times to communicate. And I think it's really important when we talk about that, because even people who really use like mass communications to communicate an idea, they understand that it all starts with one root theme. And that's why I always ask, like, what is that one thing that you want to be able to communicate? And when they take that one root theme, they then say, okay, then let me think about all the different platforms that I have in which I need to be able to communicate this particular theme, but then how is it going to be effective? So, certain social media, like for instance, something like Instagram, you'll use picture, right? Photojournalism. So you use a picture to be able to say 1,000 words that are all around that particular root theme. Then if it's going to be, email marketing, maybe it's something provocative that's going to be able to get someone to say, I need to do this particular call to action. So then you go ahead and you'll use verbiage, you'll use maybe, image, verbiage, and then a call to action button to be able to get someone to move to the next step for you. But it's all based around that particular root theme of what it is that you want to be able to push out that particular, week, month, what have you. Then maybe there's a challenge you want to do around this particular thing, let's say in a Facebook group or, in a small group setting that's you use on social media. And then maybe on your website, it's just informational and the call to action is click here to learn more, and then you go from there. In the podcast, maybe, you would use something that could be spoken to because that's an audio, media platform you're going to use. So what you do is you take that root theme. So whether that root theme is new product, new service, new direction, whatever it is for that's based or that's grounded or anchored in that vision, that's what the root theme is. And then you look at all those different platforms of how you're going to get that information in front of someone. And that's how you begin building and growing that we call that social communication strategy to help people understand that vision that you're actually pushing forward, and that consistency begins to happen, because you're not going to flood everything at once. If you've been doing this for some time, you use some kind of software to really help you time when it's going to be pushed out to market. So you'll have something pushed out on a Monday, something pushed out on a Wednesday, something pushed out on a Friday, maybe something pushed out on a Sunday evening, and according to the times that your readers are really engaged, you'll know what time to do what. So these are things that you should really take into consideration when we're talking about and focusing on consistency. So once again, when we talk about the 3 reasons of why you should be focusing on the vision, those 3 reasons are because, one, your vision is your blueprint, right? And if this is the blueprint of why your business exists in the first place, then these are the things that you want to educate people on so they can become more aware of the brand, right? And then number 2, it connects the dots for people, and connecting the dots is absolutely key. If people cannot identify what you do, if they can't tell how you do it, if they don't know how to use you, a use case is a word I use all the time. So if they cannot create in their minds a use case of why they should take a portion of their budget and invest it in whatever it is that you're offering, they're not going to be bought in. They're just going to be like, whatever. So it's going to be really important that you're able to help them connect the dots. And then number 3 is going to be keeping you anchored. And I know that sounds silly, and I know it almost sounds something that you think everyone would use as common sense, but I can't tell you how many times I have seen people literally offer to market so many different things where the connection is not it's not intuitive. It's not something that you see like, oh, there's the connection. Now, maybe after I speak to them, the connection makes so much more sense. I'm like, but when you first see it, it doesn't make sense. So you really want to make sure that all of those things are happening. And so this is why you have to focus on your vision. And so, when we move into the why and to the how, your how is going to be really take the time first to look at what are you offering now versus what did you do in the past? Because what you're looking for there, and the reason why you're starting there, is you're trying to really do a check, an audit, if you will, on the vision. Like, is it still relevant to where I was in the past, or am I going somewhere new? And the reason why you're doing that audit is because one is that you may need to reintroduce yourself. I'm really big on that. And if you find that it is the same as always, you're still going to find that you may have to reintroduce yourself because you're going to have new people who are falling into your customer base. And so you really need to make sure that that reintroduction is done. Number two, you want to dust off your messaging because you want to make sure that it's absolutely clear in everything that you do that there's a connection to that blueprint of why the business exists. So if you aren't making that messaging very clear, you're losing out great opportunities to connect the dots. And remember, the connection is what helps drive the conversion. So if you are missing those opportunities to really help make those connections, then that is shame on you. Not shame on people for not supporting you. It's just shame on you for not taking the due diligence as the leader that you are in the organization to be able to really help make those connecting points for the customer. And then third but not least is, consistency is absolutely imperative. And you do that by leveraging the multiple platforms that you have accessible to your business. And you do that by making sure that in all cases that you chop it. You chop up that. You have that root theme that you are able to say, this is what I'm going to discuss today. This is how it's tied to my vision. And these are the different ways that I'm going to be able to communicate this using the different platforms. So I just hope that this has been able to help you. I hope you're able to take these tools and you're able to use them in a way that will help you move the business forward. And with that, I hope you have an awesome, wonderful, and most of all, productive day. Bye.